with other monks and people within the church. So when Thomas Aquinas secretly decided to become a Dominican monk, his parents were very upset because they were an aristocratic family, and for him to go begging for alms for the church would be uncomely, and it would give them dishonor possibly. But he did it anyway, and as a result, they kidnapped him and locked him in a tower for a year. They tried to send a prostitute to convince him to basically go from his ways of being a Benedictine monk. I'm sorry, being a Dominican monk. It didn't work, and he resisted. And eventually he escaped. He went on later to teach theology at the University of Paris and Cologne. People there often thought he was dumb because he was so quiet. However, a man named Albertus Magnus foretold that his teaching would be heard throughout the world, and he was right. One of Thomas Aquinas' best works is Summa Theologica. It runs about 3,500 pages. It's a theological collection of works. Originally, it was intended to be an instruction guide for students. In it, he cites authorities like Aristotle, St. Augustine, Cicero, Plato, and Paul the Apostle. One of the most popular articles discusses God's existence. The format of his arguments starts with a question, and it's answered in 5 parts. Utrum, which is Latin for whether. Apertet, which is Latin for objections. Sed contra, on the contrary. Respondio dicendum, I answer that. And then he answers the objections, starting with ad primum, ad secundum, ad tertium, which is first, second, third. So, I didn't want to go too in depth because I might lose you with all of his theology and very wordiness in his long articles. So, I'm using a very simple argument that might easier illustrate the type of style he uses with his arguments. So we have a tomato, and the question whether tomatoes are vegetables. Objection 1 would be, it has always been a veggie to us, so it must be a veggie. Objection 2 would be, it looks like a vegetable, so it must be a vegetable. Objection 3 would be, it tastes good with other vegetables in cooking. So on the contrary, one might say, it is scientifically not a vegetable, which would be backed up by scientists of some sort. And then you would say, I answer that. We should not consider tomatoes to be vegetables because they've been proven to be fruit, and doing otherwise would be wrong. And then you would reply to each objection. Tradition shouldn't dictate truth. Reply 2, looks can be deceiving. Reply 3, then it must simply be that you can use both in cooking if tomatoes are a fruit. So, I can go further into Thomas's specific argument in one of his articles if we have time. With the question whether the existence of God is self-evident, in summary, his first objection is that it seems that the existence of God is self-evident because we have knowledge naturally implanted in us, and that he cites Damascene. Objection 2, says further, God exists self-evidently because we have the capacity to understand that we are parts and there must be something as a whole that is greater than us. In that he cites Aristotle. Objection 3, he says further, the existence of truth is self-evident because saying truth doesn't exist would then be true because you thought of it and that would be truth. Then he takes an authority that proves that the objections should be contradictory, should be objected to. And in this instance, he says, on the contrary, whatever is self-evident, no one can mentally admit the opposite according to Aristotle's first principles of demonstration. But Psalm 52:1 says, the fool said in his heart, God does not exist. Therefore, God exists is not self-evident. Then he goes on to answer in his own words, in a summary of the entire argument. I answer that something that can be self-evident in two ways. On one hand, self-evident in itself. On the other, self-evident in itself and to us. Something can exist without us knowing it does, or it can exist, and we know it does, but through proofs and effects. He goes on to reply to each objection. We naturally want happiness and know it, but even though God is man's source of happiness, man doesn't know that he is searching for God's happiness, just happiness. So he looks in riches and other pleasures. In the same way, we have a natural longing for God, but we don't know it is God. So we can't prove God exists by that, nor can we disprove it. Reply to objection 2. You can't say that God exists because there has to be something greater than everything and that there's nothing bigger than it, because some believe God to be a body. We can't base our proof of God on that just because we think of it in our minds, even if it is actually true. Reply to objection 3, and this is his own words. The existence of truth in general is self-evident, but the existence of primal truth, original or definite truth, is not self-evident to us. So I hope I've provided a better understanding of it, and I hope I encourage you to go read his other works, because they are very relevant to today. They ask questions, they ask and answer questions that we all ask. And he does that in a way that is often not done today. Oftentimes we try and explain life with just reason and logic. And we often, as Christians, just explain life through faith and ignore logic as if they cannot be one and the same.
Kathy, you said at the end that you hoped we would read more of Thomas Aquinas' works because what he says is relevant. All right, so you have people sitting here saying, really? He's relevant? How? Can you give a concrete example of why somebody sitting here should say, maybe I should go read him right after I read Hellboy?
Well, like I said, one of his most popular works is Does God Exist? And that is a question that plagues all of us. And he answers it in such a way that may not answer that question definitely for us, but it certainly covers a lot of bases that we may get lost on along the way. I certainly have gotten lost on a lot of questions, and he answers those questions in that article and makes a very clear and strong argument for that.
Thank you.
So, yes?
correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Thomas believes that, St. Thomas believes that just because we believe something to be correct in our minds, that we shouldn't go along with it and use that as a basis for what we believe in. Is that correct? Like, is he kind of encouraging us to look further and to seek other methods of confirming what we believe?
I think so. I think he's saying that we can't just say, I think, therefore it is. You know, we have to consider other things and not just do things for tradition's sake or because that's what my religion says or because that's the popular thing to do.
Heather, I think you would have done better by concentrating on the mechanics of that argument, because Thomistic arguments are very tidy, and Thomas has a way of capturing very, very abstract matter into very concrete components and then listing them. So the five steps that you've given are very good, and I mean, you would have been better off just telling us how he employs them in an argument. Again, an individual argument in Thomas is called an article. So, and we're dealing with thousands of articles, over 3,000 articles in Summa, and in each of them, he practices the best strategies of generous, courteous debate, where the opponent is given the highest respect, but he also has the greatest mastery. In fact, he has greater mastery of the subject matter than the opponent himself might have, but he doesn't make a show of it. There's great humility. You can find the accent of grace in everything that he does and says. There's plenty to learn. But I commend you on creating a parody of the argument with the tomato, but it is very difficult to do that, because he also balances, the claims. If you have 3 or 4 claims on this side, there will be a similar number on this side, not for the sake of symmetry alone, but because he is capable of balancing it that way. Yeah, but I'm glad you touched on something of high quality, and it is, Thomas always rewards his readers. But, yeah.
Heather, what was your context and what got you into this?
Honestly, Dr. Mathai has been teaching us about Thomas Aquinas in 2 of the classes I have with him, and he has encouraged me to do a graphic illustration of Thomism, but it was my choice to do it for the conference today.
All right, thank you very much, Heather.